Okay. Pnawn da, croeso chi gyd. Good afternoon and welcome to you all to Cabinet this afternoon. It's a hot day, obviously, gentlemen. If you want to remove your jackets, please do so. We still haven't quite got to grips with the cooling in this chamber yet. Can I also welcome anybody who may be looking in from home and watching this? We hope you enjoyed today's Cabinet meeting and find it informative. I'm Peter Fox, Leader of the Council. Can I ask Cabinet members to introduce themselves, please?
County Councillor Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Good afternoon, County Councillor Liz Hackett-Payne, Cabinet Member for Education.
Hello, County Councillor Brian Jones, Cabinet Member for County Operations.
Bob Greenland, Deputy Leader.
Phil Hobson, East Elwynedd, Cyngus Savanwi, Deputy Leader for Monmouthshire County Council and Cabinet Member for Community Development.
Jeff Burrows, Cabinet Member, Social Care, Safeguarding and Health.
Thank you all. Simon, would you like to?
Good afternoon, Cabinet. Simon Howarth, Leader of the Independent Group, Monmouthshire County Council.
And Tony?
Thank you. Tony is standing for Dimitri Petruni this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, Tony. Welcome other members and officers. Please, if you take part in the debate, can you introduce yourselves at that point? Thanks very much. So, apologies for absence. We're a full house today, apart from apologies for Dimitri, obviously. Okay, declarations of interest. Any at this point? No, and that goes for any members in the chamber. But if you find you have one, can you speak up and share that verbally and also fill in the pro forma as usual. Okay, item 3, consideration of reports from select committees. None forthcoming this week. Okay, so we'll move into item 4, and that's to consider the following reports. And the first one is the Revenue and Capital Monitoring 16-17 period 1 outturn forecast statement. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And the purpose of this report is to provide members with information on the forecast revenue outturn position of the authority at the end of period 1, which represents month 2 financial information for the 16-17 financial year. Should be pointed out that this report is being brought forward by a month against the usual timescale to provide members with relevant financial information before the summer recess, and of course it will do the round of the scrutiny committee, so members will have the opportunity of looking at it in depth there. There is an early indication of the revenue spend at period 1 of a 1.37 million overspend. And clearly it's early days, but with the finances so tight these days, members will need to know as early as possible if any new initiatives are coming forward. So Cabinet requires chief officers to provide information on how the overspend position will be brought back within budget, including alternative plans to deliver the £301,000 worth of mandated savings reported as not achievable in this report, and that needs to come forward for the next monitoring report. Cabinet requires directors to review levels of over and underspends and reallocate budgets where appropriate to reduce the extent of compensatory positions needing to be reported prior to month 6 reporting. That's in an attempt not to keep showing over and underspends where the overall budget is within control. And Cabinet appreciates the extent of predicted schools reserve usage and the anticipation that 13 schools will be in deficit position by the end of 16-17. Again, this is familiar territory, but cannot be assumed to be. We need to know if this situation can be managed, and I think my colleague Liz Hackett-Payne will want to say something about that in a minute. Importantly, Cabinet recognises the risk associated with having to rely on the use of capital receipts in the year anticipated, and the potential for this to have significant revenue pressures should receipts be delayed and temporary borrowing be required. It's a case that the capital programme is under significant strain at the moment. Reference to 313 and 315 shows the pressure building in that we are starting with a more difficult position than in previous years. It should be stressed, however, and I said it just now, that this forecast is only based on 2 months data. And you'll see there in 313 that the anticipated deficit for the year is greater than it was in previous years, albeit in those years we have actually turned in a surplus at the end of the financial year. As I've said, this forecast is indicative of the fact that it's based on 2 months actual data and 10 months estimated data. So directorates will be undertaking a piece of work to see if they can move those budgets to more accurately reflect where they are needed, instead of continuing to report the extent of over and underspends. And that will give us a much better idea in the next report as to what control is being exercised over those budgets. Leader, as usual, there's considerable detail in this report, which will no doubt be considered carefully in the scrutiny committees, and no doubt that Joy and Mark will be able to supply any additional information. So I'll stop at that point and invite questions.
Thank you, Phil. It's always a comprehensive report, and it does give us the level of detail we require, but I think I absolutely agree. It's early days, and but I think we have to note that starting point, how it's increasing year on year, so the challenges is getting greater and greater, and we have to meet those challenges, and that gets harder and harder. We have to absolutely recognise that, and I think your recommendations, which you shared, are absolutely right. We will look forward to the mitigating report in the near future. Colleagues, Liz.
Thank you very much. And just picking up on Councillor Murphy's comments about this is the first 2 months, obviously in a 12-month period, with the 13 schools anticipated to be in deficit. This is often the case in this early period of school spending. What we're forecasting is that by the end of the year, that a same number of schools as we have at the moment in deficit, which I think is about five or seven, it will be about the same number. But in this first 2 month period, schools, it's the trend that they often spend money to set up for the following year, which will obviously start in September. So obviously I've asked questions about that, and I'm quite reassured with the dialogue that has come back from officers about those 13 schools.
Yeah, on that point, I'm always we always see this, especially with school balances, and it'd be really useful to show the trend of starting points as we do show the trend with starting points for the whole budget, because in all of my time as a councillor, I have seen this prediction of almost wipeout of balances at the start of the year, and then as it becomes clearer, these are reviewed. So I'm not going to panic unduly, and thank you for your advice on that, Liz. Colleagues, anybody else wish to add? No? Okay. Simon.
Yeah, may I just ask a question of our finance team? Would it be prudent for me to say, is it that perhaps purchase orders made during the months of February and March actually within the authority may be held back, reference to payment, which then gives the department some breathing space then, so that then they paid off in April and May time, because that sometimes does happen that we do buy things prior to the end of the budget, but actually they may not have been signed off, maybe an order number out there for them, but we may be just hanging back on payment, which then gives a true reflection, i.e. you've made savings in your financial year for, let's say, 15-16, but a true reflection is them savings may be brought down of every purchase order which was given out in February, March, which is a true reflection of bottom line. I just want to ask that question. It has come up a couple of times.
Mark or Joy?
Certainly that is a tactic that service managers might adopt in balancing their old year position. If it's one where they've ordered the goods naturally it would form a part of an accrual and therefore be reflected in the old year. But actually, I think the overall pressure on net cost of service is more the fact that social care generally doesn't vary that much between forecasting first quarter to outturn. They're usually pretty accurate in their predictions. What's perhaps more the case is the compensatory accommodated ad hoc savings around enterprise operations that would normally swallow some of that up. Increasingly every year, it's pressure that they're probably not going to achieve, or they don't suspect they will achieve in the at the first quarter. That's helpful.
Thank you, Mark. Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just two small questions in terms of the mandates which are going forward this year. We don't seem to be able to achieve the one with the hubs. There seems to be problems in the consolidation in the Abergavenny area. I'd like some comment on that. And we're also seeing a slippage in my mind through the consolidation of the leisure centres and services. We've had various meetings coming forward. They had to be cancelled because of concerns within moving it forward. They're two areas which do give some concern.
Thanks very much. I know Bob certainly would want to come back on certainly the first item on the hub. But Kelly, have you got something? Do you want to come in there?
Yeah, just to say on the leisure centres, it's just recognising the point that Mark has made really in terms of things are very difficult. We've generated income, I believe, to optimal levels. We still remain highly confident, I think, in terms of reversing the position in year as we did last year. We achieved a surplus position last year, but I think the point Councillor Eason raises is more to do with the alternative delivery model and some of our plans and proposals. And we have a members' seminar scheduled, I think, in September to discuss that.
Yeah, just quickly on the Abergavenny hub. It's the most complicated of the hubs to bring into being, but I'm pleased to say that we have met with all the users of the town hall, the town council itself, the Borough Theatre Trust. We've also spoken to the Friends of Abergavenny Library and other users as well. And everyone is in agreement now with the proposals that we have for combining the services of the hub into the town hall. We are now at the point of getting consultations reports on the details of the work to be done, and that is progressing over the summer months. So we expect to be able to make a move in that direction during the latter part of this year.
Can I come back on one further comment? I understand that within the configuration of the hub in Abergavenny, with the police station closing down, I don't know when the date will be, that there will be some interaction with the police in that area of the market hall and the hub?
That is another possibility that is being examined as well, with consultations with the police, whether that can be incorporated. I mean, the real value of hubs is that it should not just be Monmouthshire County Council delivering public services from them, but that other public services can also join in, and the police are a good example in Abergavenny. But we're not at the point at which we could say that that will definitely happen in Abergavenny.
I think just to add to that, I believe the police do have a presence in Monmouth Hub. I'm not sure if any other hubs, but and Caldecott. So that's it's a great step forward. Okay, I'm going to take it. Phil talked us through the recommendations in his opening, so I won't read all of these out again. So I'm going to move recommendations 2(1) to 2(6). All in favour? Thank you very much. We look forward to the follow-up reports relating to those recommendations. Okay, we move on then to the Crick Road proposed disposal to Mellon Homes. Councillor Phil Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And this is all about the proposed development of the Crick Road site on the outskirts of Caldecott or Portskewer, whichever direction you're looking. And it's to consider an in-principle decision for the disposal of that site to Mellin Homes in order to maximise social and capital value. The recommendation is that Cabinet agrees to the Council entering into discussions with Mellin on the proposed sale of the Crick Road site in order to develop a business plan that will subsequently be presented to Cabinet. So this is early days. Let's have a little look and see what we can get out of this. Subsequent to that, there will be a decision on whether to proceed with the sale. The Council and Mellin Homes have been in discussions about embarking on such a development that would support the creation of a cohesive community that has regard to its place and its local context. And in this case, it's proposed that the Council enter into detailed discussions with Mellin on an open book approach where they jointly design the site layout based on its aspirations to develop a community. Mellin are proposing to construct a residential mix with 25% affordable and the remainder open market sales, which will be constructed by their commercial arm. And they've been appointed as the nominated registered landlord for the site by the Council's Housing Department. Their development model is slightly different from other people in that it requires a lower developer's profit than that of a commercial developer, which results in a higher capital receipt to the authority. They have experience of achieving social value working with the local community, and they're active with the apprentice and other initiatives. So the discussions to date have been undertaken on the basis that a collaborative approach with both parties absorbing their own costs and undertaking the discussions on an at-risk basis. Should Cabinet be minded to enable more detailed discussions to be commenced, significant costs will be incurred in design and survey fees. Mellin have requested that in the event that this Council withdraws from the discussion with no fault attributable to Mellin, that their reasonable costs are underwritten on this basis, that the intellectual property rights are transferred to this Council. And later on in the report, it establishes these as potentially some 75,000. In the event that happens, then of course that work would have to have been done anyway, so it wouldn't be lost. So that's the gist of it, Leader. This is opening up the conversation with a view to a report coming back to give detail upon which a decision can be made.
Thank you very much, Phil. As obviously local ward member, I'm pleased to see this come forward, a different approach. There is already a strong cohesive community against that, so I don't think it'd be against that potential site, so I don't think it'd be hard for us to integrate even further cohesive thinking. Mellin, a great partner we work with on at a lot of levels, so I'm certainly happy to at least enter into those discussions to explore out the opportunities. It seems from what you're saying that there is a financial benefit from us pursuing perhaps this option. Good. We need to understand that, and that will come forward obviously in this later report, which will sort of perhaps share a business proposition. So we look forward to that. So yeah, wish it well, and look forward to hearing that next report. Colleagues, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I also welcome this report. I think it's an exciting opportunity to partner with a social landlord on a development of this sort. And the only thing I would also say is that whether or not we choose a commercial developer or a social landlord, the mix of affordable housing will be the same that we require from either. It's neither more nor less from Mellin Homes than we would expect from a commercial developer.
Anybody else? Okay, Simon.
Yeah, I have two questions, Leader. I think you were present. We did have a chat with our Mellin executives some months ago now. Could you just remind me, Phil, your comments there about who picks the bills up if one of us walks away? Because I was under the impression we didn't pick anything up. If things didn't work out, it would be left with the provider. And secondly, If this is going to be run by the asset management team or the team who are looking after the zones where we have within the LDP, this will be run from the revenue budget side of it, and I see the costs of employees doing this work for the council. We're talking quite a considerable amount of money here. Would this be returned back to that department if things went ahead instead of one capital receipt coming forward? Would each department be able to be reimbursed for the work they've done? Because actually, when we were sitting in a meeting last week, there is an issue with amounts of work being done by certain departments within this council having no funding given to them, but the extra burden they've got to lay out to carry out that work seems very unfair. And I'd say if there's a great amount of work to be carried out by a department from revenue, surely that should be re-invoiced or re-internally invoiced, so actually they can operate within their budget proposals, because it says here no additional resources, but there'd be a heck of a lot of time here, and I think that's only fair. I just want to what your comments are on that, because this will be a capital receipt. All the work up to it will be revenue.
Okay, thanks, Simon. A couple of elements. I mean, Phil, perhaps I'll let you come in first if you wish. Sure.
But it isn't unusual for departments to be working in advance of projects coming up, and all of this has been done within existing budgets anyway. We do have a system of internal invoicing, which, if it's felt appropriate, could be invoked. But your principal question was regarding who picks up the cost. The point is covered in 5.2 and the resource implications, and effectively says, look, we've all met our own costs at the moment. Melin would have to go into a lot of additional costs if they decide that they want to progress this. And what they're saying is, look, we'll be doing all of this. If you pull out, and it's no fault of ours, we want you to reimburse us for that £75,000 worth of costs. I don't know whether it was quite that you were driving at, but you know, it's principally setting the ceiling at that £75,000, and you know, really giving them confidence that they can go ahead with this without having to stand all of it themselves.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I wouldn't, and I'll be corrected by officers who might want to clarify further, I wouldn't envisage our officers incurring any more work or labour, and if this was marketed in the conventional way, I would have seen it just exactly the same. That's the one thing I think Bob was alluding to around affordable housing allocation. It's the same percentage, whatever. This will be an element of this, if it happened, would be built with a commercial arm and developed in the same way as other sites which we would have seen coming forward. I think it'll be interesting to see the business case, and because I think when we had that that insight into some of this thinking some while ago, I think that was a bit more advanced thinking than this report before us today is purely to set out on that exploration. But Simon, please come back.
Yeah, I think the question was asked during that seminar of the directors of Melin, heck of a risk to take when it could lie not within you, and you've spent a lot of money, and they said, well, we're willing to take that risk. Now, this is totally different in this report to what was said in that meeting. End of story for me.
Yeah, I can't remember every word of that. It was very much an exploratory meeting. I don't think we had a great deal of detail on it. Peter, did you want to come in?
I think it's just to re-emphasise, as Councillor Murphy's touched on, what's sort of highlighted in the report. I mean, if the authority wishes to withdraw, and it is, you know, in no way a fault attributable to Melin, then clearly there would be costs that would be picked up by the authority. However, the authority would look to retain the intellectual property, and obviously all the work that's been undertaken and points that have been made already, that we would look to carry that work in to obviously looking to put the site out to market.
Okay, thank you. Tony?
Yes, thank you, Leader. this is an important development amongst the many developments in the Cowent, potentially Undy, maybe on the shipyard in Port Stewart, and from what I gather, there may be some talk of Garthaland Drive. But reasons for the development is quite clear. You make it, the statement are, the development of large residential sites with little regard to its context within the local community can result in disenfranchised communities. And I think it's very important that these developments in and around the Caldecott area are looked at in that light, because we're talking over 1,000 houses in the whole area, maybe 1,500 children. Are the schools going to be big enough? Will the comprehensive school be able to take them on? Have we got the facility to support them? So within the whole context of this development, I think that paragraph needs to be emphasised very strongly with any developers.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to come back?
Yeah, well, of course, this is still only putting it out for discussion. All of that would come back in the detail.
And let's not forget that the LDP identifies, all of those things around growing children, the requirement for more education. Our schools are developed with the LDP and previous UDP in mind, so we have a good prediction of future pupil numbers based on our LDP, where it becomes a problem if you had some additional windfall sites which come in, which we've got to cater for, but most of those are catered within the infill, understanding what infill potential there might be in the area. So, but I think your sentiments around, you made regarding this, I think, a fair comments to make around all our sites. You're quite right. There's a huge amount of housing coming in our area in Port Stewart alone. Now with the paper mill, we're coming forward, possible shipyard. We're talking of best part of 600 houses in my village alone. So it's significant. Okay.
The point in terms of all these developments going on, there will be a high level of sill being produced, which means that certain wards we're looking at 25% of community infrastructure levy funding, with the rest going to the centre of Monmouthshire. But bear in mind that the nucleus of all this is Caldecott, which will not really be in any position to benefit from CAL funding. So there must be a holistic view looked at the whole of this across Sevenside, I'll say.
Kelly?
Just to say, Leader, that the work regarding SIL is ongoing, and we hope to bring a report to Council in the next 6 months. There's still a little bit more work to do. So as it stands, it would be the case that this site would be subject to Section 106 and not Community Infrastructure Levy.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. That's interesting. No, I thought I thought the deadline was gone for 106, but that's really good to know. Okay, right. So the recommendations then are in 2.1 and 2.2 as covered by Councillor Murphy. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the effectiveness of council services, the 2015-16 update, and this is to provide Cabinet with an update of how the council performed in 2015-16 against an important set of indicators used to judge the current effectiveness of council services. It contains a screenshot of our Cabinet dashboard, which brings together a range of key measures that we use to measure progress against the Council's 4 priorities and indicators, which are part of the National Performance Indicator set. For the past 3 years, we've reported continuously improving picture. In the 2014-15, we were amongst the top performing authorities in Wales, measured by national PIs. The results for 2015-16 demonstrate that around half of measures have continued to show year-on-year improvement. The report also looks at performance over the last 4 years, which is the term of this council, and the analysis shows 3/4 of national performance indicators have improved over this period, or of significant financial pressure, it has to be said. So members saw a lot of data when they approved the improvement plan at Council in May, but this shows a more complete picture, I think, than was available at that time. Within the data sets, there have been many marginal changes, but also some more extreme improvements and declines. And paragraph 3.5 summarises some of the key issues and actions being taken on these. Our continuance agreement and improvement plan recognise that we will have to manage expectations in some areas and focus on maintaining standards in service delivery when faced with reducing budgets, increasing demand and the rural nature of the county. We recognise this data along with our own performance information shows there remain services areas that require improvement. The first quarter update of performance in 2016-17 will be presented to Cabinet in September, which will include the targets for these indicators and will help us understand the progress being made. Members will know that you can access all of the information which has been captured here as well on the hub. I do hope members take that opportunity. The dashboard is really helpful. I have Richard Jones at the back who can answer some more detailed questions of perhaps around some of those areas where we've seen the changes. We do recognise there are still challenges in areas. They need to be read in context, and sometimes it helps to have an explanation around some of those areas, certainly ones in decline, so we can understand put these into perspective and understand what we're genuinely doing about putting those right. So at that point, I'll just hand over to colleagues, and then I'll perhaps invite Richard to pick up any further questions if need be. Colleagues, anything? No? Simon?
Yeah, I think there's just the one, well, there's two there. Deliver affordable homes, which is page, we've fallen behind on that, and the average sickness days per employee.
Yeah.
Now that has been picked up by Select, and I think there's a piece of work a lot of questions being asked, and I think a lot of information to come back to us, leaders. So I just want to know what Cabinet's thoughts are on that one, and on the deliver affordable homes, really. We've dropped off on that. Does that mean perhaps the SHG, which we used to have, isn't enough to trigger some of the developers to take affordable homes forward on there? Or the toolkit we're using perhaps isn't what we feel we should be using? I don't know. I'd just like some comments on them too, really, please.
I think the areas on delivery of affordable housing would be easier for professionals to help answer some of the issues there. Obviously, if sites aren't being delivered as fast as we would like, the element of affordable housing can't be delivered along with them. And I know we are finding some pressure in bringing sites forward as fast as we hoped, as identified in the LDP. Crick Road, for instance, is one which has taken a little while coming forward, but we can see that it will demonstrate a 25% affordable housing allocation at some point. So I think it's a fair challenge. I think it's one which needs to be explored out, and no doubt we will be looking at, well, it will soon be time for us to be looking at our next LDP, I'm sure. And I know Councillor Greenland now carries responsibility for that. He might want to reflect further. But you're quite right in identifying the areas you have, the growing, increasing amount of sickness absence. That is something we are very conscious of, and I know leaders are, and I'll invite Peter Davis in a minute to perhaps reflect on that point to put that into some context as well. Bob, did you want to reflect on the LDP first?
Well, only to agree with what you have said. We are under pressure. I think we know that there are some sites that aren't coming forward as quickly as we would have liked, and we have to keep that under review to ensure that we have our housing allocation moving forward. So we are looking at that, but I can't really give you any more information than that at the moment. I think Kelly might.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Greenland. And just to reflect further upon what the leader says, I think the issue as regards affordable housing delivery isn't so much to do with social housing grant, because that accounts for a very small proportion of our affordable housing delivery. And obviously that's a declining grant programme as well. The issue is with major strategic sites. So we've done really well in terms of our rural affordable housing allocations. We've managed to deliver on the vast majority of those sites that have come forward to date. I remember at the time, I think there were some misgivings because it was quite a high proportion that we were looking to carry forward on rural and rural exception sites, but we've been really successful with that. The big issue that we do have is with major strategic sites, And because lots of those sites are quite rightly not in our ownership, we're experiencing some delays that, you know, are really not of our making. So I think the idea is now that every year we bring forward an annual monitoring report to Cabinet and Council, usually about September and October time. That gives a review of activity for the preceding 12 months. We plan to do this September, October, and I think we can take a view and formulate some recommendations about more work that may be needed at that point, because we have to have the sites coming through, because 25-30% of nothing doesn't deliver us anything in terms of affordable housing. It all comes on the coattails of those major strategic sites.
Thank you, Kelly. Sorry, I was just going to... Oh, yes, sorry.
Just to add one bit, Leader, we've also had problems that have been site-specific as well. Just as an example, the Sedbrook site, but there were viability issues there, and we had to agree to a vastly reduced amount of affordable housing because the site just wasn't economical to develop. So sometimes we have to compromise.
Okay, and a lot of these things are out of our control, as Kelly said, you know, so private landowners in their negotiations with developers can take time and come up against hurdles, and that can delay, and there's a knock-on to us as well. Peter, would you like to reflect on the HR issues?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I mean, I think as has been commented, I guess concern, I guess, just in terms of the sickness absence figures, obviously deteriorating year on year. But I think in the first instance, I think taking some positive, I'm reassured from good work that HR colleagues have been doing with managers to sort of unlock quite a significant number of long-term sickness cases during the year. But that said, I think what we have seen, and I guess reflected in the deterioration, is particularly we've seen spikes in stress and psychological related illness. We've certainly not waited for the outturn figures to sort of hit the desk in the first instance. We've been aware of the need to sort of enhance some of our work around sickness absence, and I think there's various aspects to this. We've already got training programs in place at the moment, making sure that we are equipping managers to deal with sickness cases, and also to be proactive in identifying, I guess, where employees' well-being isn't where it should be, and offering and providing necessary support. I think further to that, we have focused some of our training activity around mental health awareness, well-being initiatives in terms of mental resilience, etc., and a focus around stress risk management, which needs to enhance and develop as the year goes on. We have recently had sessions with senior management team, really to try and get a bit of a better understanding in terms of what some of the drivers are behind some of the significant sick cases. And I think some of our reflections around making sure that our systems are fit for purpose, and there is work already in train to make sure that managers have access to reliable and accurate information, and then they are acting upon that. And I think the final point really is with regards to some of our HR support really, and making sure that that is directed appropriately at the right times, to make sure that I guess sickness cases don't escalate into more significant situations. It's really addressing them at source and resolving them. So you know, we're in dialogue at the moment at a DMT level, Directorate Management Team level, to look to get on top of this and obviously drive improvement.
Thank you, Peter. Simon, I think you wanted to come back.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I wasn't saying that we weren't delivering our mandate for affordable homes. What I'm saying is we're building homes, but the percentage what we're building isn't hitting the target that we anticipated to deliver. Now, Councillor Murphy's made the point there, actually, we couldn't deliver on some sites because of problems. Now, that would be nice to integrate that in the report, to save me talking here. You see where I'm going? I think that's important, that if we're going to do reports like this, if there is a reason behind that, I think it should be paragraphed in here, unable to deliver through unknown circumstances. I think that's what I was getting at here.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. So Sudbrook was a prime case where there was a lot of negotiation for a lot of time, because it was an ex-industrial site, and the mitigation elements in that were making it hard for us to agree with the developer the levels of affordable housing, and hence we've had a reduced number coming forward. But I'm thankful that we have managed to negotiate that, and I think that it was a fair challenge at that point. And there will be, I think, Phil, I think it's already been referenced that there will be times where there will be or have been issues, and that's what you were alluding to, which will stop that. But Kelly, you want to talk to that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. I think it's a really fair point that Councillor Howarth has made, and obviously every site needs to be looked at on its individual merits, and circumstances and factors change all of the time. After all, housing development is a market intervention, so it's very difficult for us to influence other than through the tools that we have. But the fundamental point that I must make is we are not building enough market homes, and that's because we don't have the land coming forward at the moment. So there is a bigger fundamental and structural issue for us to address here. So we're supposed to have a 5-year housing land supply at any one time. We don't. Currently our housing land supply is 3.8 years. So we do have to take some action, we do have to review, and we have to make sure that going forward we have the sites allocated. And okay, there'll be a process of negotiation in terms of percentages of affordable housing, but as I said previously, you know, 30% of nothing is nothing. So we have to have the sites coming forward in the first place, and we don't in the right amounts and volumes at the moment.
And I think we'll be having a monitoring review, but as we move into the next LDP, it's an opportunity for all members to get involved with us. We can review our policies and things that we put in place around some of these areas and challenge ourselves if they were achievable or they've been expected too much. And I think that's that will be a debate we will have in due course, no doubt. But you're absolutely right, Kel. It's not, whilst we need more affordable housing, we need housing, and that's a fact. Yeah. Okay, Tony. No. Okay, so the recommendations then are that Cabinet use the report to help the continuous monitoring and evaluation of effectiveness of services and the extent to which they are contributing to the Council's priorities of the education of children, support to vulnerable people, enterprise and job creation and maintaining locally accessible services, and that Cabinet use this report as an opportunity to identify any action that may need to be taken to drive improvement and ensure that services are as effective and efficient as possible in the context of current resources. And I can share that all of my Cabinet colleagues are following their performance indicators constantly and are right on the case on this, so happy with that. So all in favour of those recommendations? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on then to a suite of reports from Councillor Jeff Burrows.
Thank you, Leader. It's well known to us all here that the Social Care and Wellbeing Act, which came into being in April of this year, and our preparedness for its many mandates on us, have been discussed on a number of occasions for different reasons. Our culture of integrated working in this authority has held us in very good stead, but we realise that there would be a raft of adjustments that we would need to make if we were to fully embrace the true spirit of what the Act requires of us. And one very important principle is that of the preventative agenda, improving well-being and by implication reducing resources devoted to highest cost need. We have 2 services in adults and children's and have many shining examples of good practice that to date have been quite different and distinct demands placed upon them. I'm sure we don't need to remind colleagues, though, of some of the pressures that statutory demand and case complexity has brought on children's services in recent times. These 2 services, whilst having served us well to date, now need to be reconfigured to both take account of the changing times, with emphasis now on being on people rather than adults and children, but also allows us the opportunity to begin to merge some of the best practice around commissioning and service provision. The purpose, therefore, of Claire's report is to seek permission for the changes she envisages necessary to go ahead. So I recommend report to colleagues and invite questions. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Jeff. Claire, would you like to come in?
Only briefly, I think the Cabinet member has summarised the drivers for change very well. What this report seeks to do this afternoon is to put in place a structure for social care and health, a leadership structure, which will give us a collective and collaborative sense of leadership across the Directorate, and hopefully put us in a position which is fit for purpose for the coming years. It's been subject to full consultation engagement with those who are affected by the change, and obviously what we're looking to do this afternoon, following this afternoon, is to lead to the next phase and implement the new structures.
Thank Thank you, Claire. Absolutely welcome this, and thanks for all you're doing. You've not long been here, and you really do an excellent job. Colleagues, anybody wish to add to this? Pretty straightforward. Simon? No? Tony?
Yeah, I'd like just to ask, thank you, Leader. On my page 121, you're showing a deletion of a level of posts, and it states that the recurring cost of the structure review will be cost neutral, which means it's moving the furniture around. But there are 2 posts on the top of that list which seem to have come up in questions we've asked audit as to between a high level of salary. Do those posts actually exist at the moment? The fact they're going to be deleted, I understand, but do they actually exist? Because they've come up on the audit of an annual audit, and I've asked questions about those particular posts, where they are.
Sorry.
The top 2 posts.
Yeah, the top 2 posts, the 2 head of services posts, yes, the head of adults and the head of children's services posts do exist at the moment. And what we're proposing to do at no additional cost is to give both of those post holders additional responsibilities across social care and health. So we're building on the strengths within adults and children's.
I think the clarity you need is the number, Tony. These numbers are always quoted in all of our reports, and they include the on-cost. That's the accommodation costs, all of the elements which are... No?
That's the on-cost then, okay. Right.
National insurance and super. Okay,
right,
so
okay.
this is not the... This isn't the salary, as you know.
So it's not the question I was asking in audit then?
No. Okay. Mark, is there anything further you need to add on that? No? Okay. Okay, any further points? No, that's it. So we go back to the recommendations, as Jeff's alluded to. I won't read all of those out, but the recommendation is in 2.1 to 2.4. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, move on to the children's services.
Okay. Thank you again, Leader. As mentioned in the earlier introduction, we're all too aware of the demand pressures that children's services have been subject to in recent times, with a clear indication that nothing is going to change anytime soon. Statutory demand and complex need is a recipe for high ongoing resource cost, and much is going on at the moment to mitigate this. Our choice, though, is to either manage this essentially reactive-based delivery service model by the sticking plaster approach of constant financial support over and above the projected budget, or we can radically change our practice to become far more preventative in nature. Getting to a different place, though, with respect to how we support children in terms of costs of time and money, but it's in my view the right thing to do when it comes to families and children that are on the brink of crisis. We must do everything we can to support families to stay together with their children, as all too often we have seen that once this point in the timeline has been crossed, the most likely outcome for the young person will be the remainder of their childhood receiving care support of some type or another. That's not to say that sometimes this is the right outcome for them, but every endeavour should be made to make this the measure of last resort. Reconfiguring a service through practice change from becoming an intrinsically reactive service to being proactive one is like making headway when swimming against the tide. It takes extra effort and resource, but like so many other topics we have covered, investor saving in a time of austerity is very hard, but necessary if we're going to have a service that is fit and relevant for the future. Again, I welcome Jane's plan on how she's going to achieve this, and again, welcome comments. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Is Jane with us now? Claire?
Sorry, Leader, you've got me again. Jane is at a whole service event this afternoon with the Children's Services workforce, which obviously is a critical part of this improvement programme. As the Cabinet member has said, what we need to do is to take a very different approach with our children's services, recognise the demand which we're trying to meet, and look at how we meet that demand in a different way. What we're doing through this proposed programme for improvement is try and link the improvements that we need to make around practice to the service offer that we have through a commissioning approach, and all that needs to be embedded within a permanent workforce within the council who have the support and the tools to do the job which we're employing them to do. And that's why you've got the suite of reports this afternoon which bring together practice, commissioning and workforce improvement in the range of recommendations. As the Cabinet member has said, we are looking to make sure that we've got the resource to invest invest in transforming practice and learning really the lessons from the success that we've had in adult services here in Monmouthshire, but also improvements in children's services across Wales, that getting that practice confident and right first time is absolutely critical to this improvement journey, and most importantly ensuring that outcomes for children and young people are what we aspire that they are, but also putting the children's services in a place where it can live within the means allocated to it through the budget setting process of the council.
Thank you, Claire. We've never been frightened of investing in this area because it's so important to the whole council, not just any one of us. It's so important that we give children the very best opportunities to fulfill their lives, and we need to make sure we have the tools to deliver it. So I'm not against investing. I don't like to say it's not investing to save, this is investing in children, and that's really really important. Do you believe then with these suite, I'm sure you do, the suite of reports we have here and this level of investment, is this going to address the needs we believe we're going to encounter over the next few years, or will we be in similar positions, you think, in the next couple of years?
I think what we've always said is that demand and needs in children's services can be unpredictable, and it would be folly for me to say that never again will we be coming forward to council and to cabinet and saying that we're managing particular pressures in children's services. There can be external factors like cases in other authority areas, changes in the legal framework which can drive demand and practice in particular directions. What I can say is that based on evidence of what works, this is the best set of proposals which I can recommend to you for putting children's services in a position where we can make those sustained improvements and critically make that shift which the Cabinet member referred to towards intervening sooner, preventing, being far more proactive, and having those right range of interventions available to social workers, that they don't feel that the only way to manage risk and to keep children safe is to move them into the looked after system, and that's critical, isn't it? It's about safety, and it's about that least intensive intervention to keep children safe in a way which we are confident we're managing in that risk. And this is the best range of recommendations which we can make in this area.
Thank you, Claire. That's really reassuring. Colleagues, here, Liz.
Thank you very much, and I most certainly support this report, anything that enables children to reach their potential in a safe environment, that most certainly has my support. But I wanted to ask, and I'm sure it is in the report here, you make reference to Families First and Flying Start, and we know the very good work that takes place there, and particularly with parents, and quite often we hear the role that parents have to take within their child achieving their potential. What I just wondered was how schools fit into this, and in particular that early intervention from early years, nursery and even pre-nursery, where I know some of the settings have said to us that they would like some help in parenting, in being able to if it is only signposting parents, how they can get help to ensure that their children do achieve everything they should do. And I've heard from head teachers asking for a similar sort of thing. There is help there, but sometimes they just need a little bit more help sometimes.
What the commissioning strategy attached to this report, Keep Me Safe When I'm Safe, really tries to do is to articulate that whole system approach that we need across the spectrum, from really universal services and downstream early intervention and prevention, right up to those more intensive set of services that we need. And we recognise within children's services and in social services that we can't do this on our own. We need to be an outward-looking service whose focus is around providing information and advice to partner agencies to enable them to do we really desperately need them to do, supporting us in managing risk and improving parenting right across the spectrum, and for families who will never become the business of children's social services, and those who are at risk of becoming our business if we don't get that early intervention and prevention right. One of the areas which is recommended within the commissioning strategy is that we look at our overall investment, not just specific grant funded, but right across the piece with partners in early intervention and preventative and wellbeing services, to make sure that it's targeted in the right way. Some of the risk around receiving funding in this way is that we can spread it very, very thin, and that we can then have some gaps in critical areas. One of the sort of areas that our self-assessment has highlighted to us is that there are gaps in family support services just at that edge of coming into statutory interventions within children's services, and that causes problems for both us, because the risk then is that our threshold has to reduce. It causes problems for partner agencies, and most importantly of all, it causes problems for children, young people and families. And I would think that through this programme we're going to be bringing forward a revised commissioning strategy around family support, which will be looking to make sure that that investment is targeted in exactly the way that we need it to be going forward.
Other colleagues, anybody? No? Okay. Simon?
Yeah, I just have one question. I'm pleased to see it went to Select. Would it be advisable that actually Select's report is in the body of the main report? Because all the questions that they've asked, then at least we know what they've been asking. I feel that's something Cabinet probably need to look at when reports do Select of this magnitude as well, because it is quite a breath of fresh air that we're going to progress and invest. But I think the Select report should be in here. We do it sometimes and we don't. Thanks, Leader.
I think that's a fair point, actually. Picking up the salient points of the Select recommendation would be helpful for us. Actually, would be helpful for us. Okay, Tony? No? Okay. Right, so the recommendation then into the Cabinet is asked to approve the Children's Services Improvement Plan set out in Appendix 1, and Cabinet is asked to approve investment of $250,000 from the Priority Investment Reserve to support the practice improvement in children's services, which is crucial to sustainable improvement in the service. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on to the next one, which is Workforce and Practice Development Plan. Councillor Burrows again.
Thank you, Leader. Can I initially thank Claire Robbins for her very helpful report that you're looking at today. The Workforce and Practice Development Plan is a very important component to the thrust of the proposals referred to just now. We all know very well that this authority has undergone profound change in recent times. I've been around for a while, and the authority now is extraordinarily different to the one that I joined in 2004. Real change, though, is brought about by people, not places. Individual contributions moving away from their comfort zone, adding to a collective will to do things differently and better. Short-term change can be energizing, but over the longer period, continual upheaval brings about fatigue and failure to achieve the initial objectives sought. I recognize the fact that we've been asking our staff to be on a journey of change for as long as I can remember, and still we need more. This document seeks to recognise that if we're to bring about the improvements required for practice change in children's services, we need to be minded of the responsibility of supporting those that are providing it for us, and so endorse fully the proposals that are offered here. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Jeff. Claire's not with us, is she? No? Okay. Peter, is there anything you wish to add to this? No? Okay. Colleagues, Liz.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, you can see the good work that has gone on through this report, how it fits into the future Monmouthshire work that's going ahead.
Anybody want to consider that? Does this correlate with the future Monmouthshire work?
I mean, absolutely it does. I think ensuring that we've got a workforce who understand not just the current demand which are placed upon them, but the future demands which are coming forward, are really reviewing their operating model and working with partners and within the context of the wider council, not in isolation as a service area, is completely aligned. There is a strong element of this which is around getting the basics within children's services right as well. So it's that very interesting really juxtaposition within one plan of managing the here and now and planning and developing and growing our workforce for the future at the same time.
Peter?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just to supplement what Claire said, really, and I'm sure Kelly will come in off the back of me, but I think there's two aspects to this. I'm just going to deviate slightly from the question was raised around future Monmouthshire in the first instance, and just to sort of highlight, really, that the report that's been brought forward is sort of echoes what I'll touch on later with regards to the People Services Annual Report. We've been working closely with Claire, with the Directorate, to make sure that we've obviously clearly got alignment in terms of the people and organisational development strategy, and particularly the workforce development aspect of that, which we know that the Wales Audit Office commented on as part of their work last year. So it's a clear area of focus for us in terms of workforce development planning, and certainly the work in children's services is, I guess, an early stage of development for that. I think just in terms of sort of from my perspective, in terms of future Monmouthshire and specifically around some of the targeted work with regards to, I guess, what we see as being the future public servant, you know, that is a core aspect of that programme, and clearly where the interplay exists between the work that we're doing around the people and organisational development strategy and the work of future Monmouthshire.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Anybody else? No? Oh, sorry, Kelly.
Sorry, Leader, I was just going to say it is a specific strand of the future Monmouthshire work, and Claire is right, both in terms of managing some of the short-term pressures that we have to respond to, because future Monmouthshire starts today, doesn't it? We're not waiting for something to happen in 2 or 3 or 5 years' time, but also in terms of taking that medium to longer-term approach. And I think the relevance of this report, and the next one, in fact, around a commissioning strategy, is that if we don't get the workforce and practice development right, it's a precursor, it's a prerequisite, then we can't move on and do some of the big ambitious things that we want to do through the future Monmouthshire programme. So it's foundational, I believe, in that sense.
Thank you, Kelly. Simon?
There was only one, Leader, and that was the resource side of it, really. I agree with everything everybody's saying, but the resource side is something that I'm sure the managers and with Jeff are going to have to probably come back to us to seek extra funds to deliver the long-term package that we're looking for. Would that be correct, Jeff?
I think only time will tell. I mean, most of what we're trying to do is to try and manage within our resource envelope, but certainly, as far as I'm concerned, you know, we have to keep an open mind to it. At the moment, I don't see it, but we can only tell for the future.
Tony? Okay. The recommendation then is for members to receive and scrutinise the information concerning key challenges within the workforce and practice development plan. All in favour? Thank you. We'll move on to the commissioning strategy, which we've just heard a little about. Jeff.
Thank you again, Leader. The strategy for children, young people and their families is a very useful piece of work, and I'm grateful to Craig, the author of this timely contribution. I'm delighted to see a paper that really seeks to show how meaningful relationship building with families at the very earliest stages may bring about life-changing outcomes for all concerned. There, of course, has to be a balance struck, but I believe that early intervention and in working with partner agencies will give rise to improved life chances for children and their families and ensure fewer present into our looked-after system. As a corporate parent, I share the concerns of all of us seeing the increasing numbers of looked-after children as displayed in page 197. There is, though, a continuum of need as youngsters rarely present at the outset, requiring the highest levels of care. So working with families just beginning to present with need makes sense. And so for me, the pledges given at the beginning of the document are exactly right. We want the best for our children in Monmouthshire, and in most cases, that's defined by them thriving in their own family context. If that's not possible, then we must do our level best to provide as near as possible to this through our fantastic foster care and family special guardians. I'm grateful that we have a well-constructed strategy document which we can continue to revisit and check our progress in this very important area of responsibility. Thanks again, Leader.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Another excellent report. Claire, do you want to add to it?
Only to say that what we've tried really hard to do with this report is, within the context of those values and those pledges at the first, is to give you something which is very measurable in terms of being able to really determine whether this is doing what we've set out to do. We've all seen commissioning strategies and strategic documents which sound great, but it's difficult to then really evaluate whether we're getting to where we want to get to. So this will give something to Cabinet alongside all the other elements of the programme, which hopefully you can come back to and really test out whether we are where we need to be.
And I think that assessment is really important. When we see national news, where we see investments for many years are having little effect on addressing some of the serious needs, it is important that we monitor our progress. And let's hope with this commissioning strategy will add some real value to families and children's lives. Okay, colleagues, anybody else wish to add? No. Okay, Simon. No. Tony.
Yeah, just one question around the age of the looked after children in Monmouthshire, particularly having seen that the top ages, 12, 13 to 17, seems to be a hardcore of where the problems lie. And when they get to 17, do they just drop off the radar? What happens within society to those groups of youngsters who are still predominantly a problem to themselves and maybe to society?
I think aren't young people till they're 25?
They are, and obviously we have got our statutory responsibilities around care leavers, which is something which we have a team within Children's Services dedicated to. We spend a lot of time making sure we've got the right range of service offers available for care leavers, and it's something which the council has put a lot of personal support into as well. So whilst they're not appearing in this table because they're not defined as children in the context of this particular strategy, there are lots of separate pieces of work and plans around how we support care leavers.
Thank you.
So the only reason I'm asking that, I understand the youngster passed away in Caldecott on last number of days who seem to have dropped off the radar.
Can you take that offline perhaps? Sorry? No, I don't comment on that. No, not here. Okay, no. Okay, thank you, Tony. So the recommendations are that Cabinet endorse the approach contained within the strategy for children, young people and their families, and reviews progress and the approach at regular intervals. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to an ultimate report, and that's the People Services Annual Report for 2016. And that is for Philip.
Thank you very much, Leader. It's this report has involved a considerable amount of work, and I start off by expressing my appreciation for the amount of effort that's gone into it. This is the first People Services Annual Report for information and to identify any issues that the People Services team need to consider going forward. To provide clarity of purpose and direction, we developed a people and organisation strategy underpinned by an ambitious delivery work programme. We have reported progress against the strategy in 15-16, and the attached People Services Annual Report of June 16 provides a summary of activity against our areas for improvement during the year. Bringing the different elements of people services together has delivered a more coherent, effective and efficient service organised around a common purpose. However, as comprehensive as the report is, there's no comparative which prevents anyone from really reading it objectively. The next report will contain those comparatives. That trend data, if you like, will be essential to a balanced report. But as I said, this is the first of these reports and has to set the base data. The report in draft form is attached, and Peter Davis is here, who will no doubt be able to fill in on any of the detail if anybody's got any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I really welcome this report, and it's it's a pleasure to go through it. It's just the way you've done it and laid it out, Pete. In fairness, it makes it helpful and usable, and our staff are our greatest resource. And I said that again and again. That's why it disturbs us a little when we picked up on that earlier report about well-being and sickness and things. But Peter, would you like to share?
Just briefly, Leader, just to, I guess, supplement the comments that Councillor Murphy's made, really. And you're absolutely right. Our people are our greatest resource, and there is that point around our colleagues and their collective passion, purpose, and talent on and off, I guess, the payroll. This is not just about our paid workforce, but our volunteer workforce as well, and how foundational they are to our success as both a council and a county. So, and very proud of what we've achieved in the 12-month period. But there is a but to that, and Councillor Murphy's touched on that. This report produces us a baseline. We need to build upon that, and certainly we need to be very clear, not just in terms of what the current needs of our workforce are, but equally what the future needs of our workforce are, and comments that obviously Callie made earlier on with regards to future Monmouthshire and future public servant. So clearly the work of future Monmouthshire will need to, I guess, inform and both influence our forward work programme. And again, reflecting on, earlier reports, the need for us to develop further workforce development plans and also quarterly scorecards at both an organisational level and at a DMT level, so that we can make sure that we are data-driven and at a time when we do have limited resources, that they are clearly directed to where there is greatest need.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Okay. Colleagues, anybody wish to add? No? Simon?
Yeah, just one comment, Leader. This did come to Select last week, and Peter, in his capacity with his new position, because this is somebody else's report, but we did ask a lot of questions of Peter, and a lot of answers were given, but we're still waiting for information to come back to us. So we as scrutiny will be forefronting this, making sure our staff have the right tools and have the HR side of it to support them in going forward is so important. I think you're quite right, he alluded to in one of the reports we mentioned the sickness and the ways of delivering public service for our staff is changing, but we also can deliver in a different way, and bringing them on board as well with this is important. So we won't let it go off our radar, and we will still ask the questions, making sure our staff are still feeling wanted. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you. Tony?
No comment.
Okay, the recommendation is then that Cabinet consider the contents of the first People Service Annual Report and identify any issues that they would like their People Services team to consider and going forward. And I think, Peter, you've already identified the key areas of development, and Phil's shared the points that we would find helpful in the future reports as well. So, colleagues, are we all in favour of that recommendation? Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the end of the public meeting. So I will have to ask at this point any members of public and press to leave the chamber, as we have one last item which is exempt, and for those that are watching at home, I'm afraid the proceedings will finish very shortly. Okay, thank you.